So I actually found the piece I was looking for, and I have it connected to my ultrapod tripod thingy right now. So that's good. I can hold it in one hand instead of two. The video I recorded a little bit ago, literally an hour ago, is still uploading because the internet here sucks. So it was a 10-minute video that's taken, it's over 2 hours to upload. Yeah. Yes, it does seem like a long time, but we can thank the local ISP here because their upload speeds are ridiculously slow. But I'm doing it on the phone right now because I can still do 1080p. Hell, I can even do 4K on the phone. But at least it's easier to upload straight to YouTube as opposed to getting it off the smartphone or getting it off the action cam and then uploading, putting it on the computer and then uploading it, which I'm months behind on that. So, because the internet here is so slow that, I've been trying to go to places where it's faster, 20, 30, 40 meg ups. And even then, I can only get, 5 or 6 loaded in a day between doing other things. So, because I have to sit there, at these other Wi-Fi hotspots for hours, letting these videos upload. Sorry, gotta take the backpack off when I go through the fence. So for those of you who don't already know, there's a trail right here. That's north. And that's south. You can obviously see it a little bit better to the north, but it runs right through here. It's see if I can find one of the stakes between this fence line and let's see if I can find one of the stakes. Not that stake. There's some orangish pink stakes that are up. They look like these fence line stakes, but they mark a 50-foot path between this fence and the other properties over here that people are allowed to use. Specifically, this trail was designed for some of the people in the neighborhood that have horses, because these properties are big enough that the people are allowed to have horses here, but they're not always able to take their horses for rides. So they have these this trail system here, so the people can go, take their horses on a couple mile ride without having to cross any major streets or go on public property or anything. And this trail is also used by hikers such as myself. It's also used by, I'm assuming, bicyclists, because I see the tracks, but I've never actually seen a bicycle go through here. So, like I said, I've seen the tracks, or at least what looks like bicycle tracks. And I do this walk. I started it when Rufus was alive, because we just moved to this area about 7 months ago. Started when Rufus was alive because Rufus loved being outside. He loved going for walks. He loved, running around exploring, to the point where I had him off leash one time and he ran over to these people's property over here and started running around their stuff, which normally I don't care. But this is a rural area, and Colorado law says, you can protect your livestock with deadly force. So it's not uncommon for loose dogs to get shot if they run across a fence or something and start harassing horses or cows or whatever. And in the case of this place, let's see if I can show it on the camera. Yeah, they have a chicken coop. So Rufus ran over there and started chasing chickens because, Rufus loved to kill things. So here I am running across that fence And that fence may actually, be at the 50-foot mark. So between that fence right there, you can see the post here, the post here, and this fence over here where you can see the posts. That's about the 50-foot line. But yeah, Rufus was over there chasing chickens, and as far as I know, he didn't kill any. But I ran over there, because by the time, not this time last summer, well, it's not summer yet, but by this time last year, his hearing was going. By June or July of last year, he was 100% deaf. Okay, maybe 98% deaf, because he could still hear thunder. He could still hear really loud noises, such as car backfires, things like that. But he couldn't hear people. He couldn't hear knocking on the door. He couldn't hear the TV. He couldn't hear it when you woke up in the morning and started walking around or anything. So yeah, I'm sitting there calling him, and he's not coming back because he can't hear me. So I had to run through the fence and chase him down and get to him before he killed any chickens. So, and we had that problem a couple other times, but for the most part, he was fine. He was 13 and a half when this was happening, or 13 when this was happening. And he knew, since the day I brought him home from the shelter, I got him at a year old. He knew his hand signals. So I always, even on leash, I always gave him hand signals anytime I asked him to do anything or told him to do anything. So he knew come, he knew stay, things like that, your basics. And, especially, I won't say in his older age, but especially in his second half of his life, I'd say 5 years old and on, he was 100%, well, not 100%, I keep saying that. He was about 85% reliable, but he had a strong, what they call prey drive, super strong, to the point where there was a few times I thought it was going to kill him. Basically, he'd run out in traffic to chase a squirrel or a bunny across the street, or there was one time he jumped out of my truck window to get to a deer on the side of the road. And he suffered a handful of injuries over his life, and they all resulted from him chasing things. Chasing a squirrel up a tree, but he's going too fast, and when he tried to stop or turn around the tree, he'd like not rip his leg out, but overstretch his leg, or mess up his hips. He's ran into glass doors and screen doors, and there was one time I thought he was going to run off of a cliff out in Moab, but he didn't. Yeah, we're standing on a cliff that's like 1,000 feet high. I'm looking around, looking at, the majesty of nature and how small and significant we all are compared to some of these things. He finds a mouse to chase, and I thought for sure he was going to get his one and only flying lesson. But he didn't. But I really did think he was going to get it. So, see that post right there? That's what I mean by the orangish, pinkish ones. So, yeah, you can see some houses through the trees over here and over here. It's a nice little trail. Doesn't get a lot of use, but it does get some use. You can see it really good there. Actually, there's a horse print right there. You can see the front of the shoe. So a horse came through here, I want to say either this morning or last night, because I don't remember seeing this yesterday. So people do come through here. Like I said, I've seen dog walkers. I've seen horses. I've seen things that look like bicycle tracks, but I've never actually seen a bicycle come through here. And for those of you who aren't in the know, this is 65, 6,600 feet above sea level. So higher than Denver. Yeah, you can see the horse tracks really good right there. Sorry, as I started to tilt the camera down, a bug came and flew and landed on my other arm. So yeah. And then that's pretty much it. I went down and met with an attorney yesterday, not mine. They just do a lot of sponsoring of events in a field that I do a lot of work in. And I had invited them to one of my events just to say, hey, you know, if you guys want to come down and network and mingle and hand out business cards, you know, we're going to be meeting here on this day to do this. And they're like, oh, that's great, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, we don't want to just come out and hand out cards. We don't want to be those people. We want to sponsor you. We want to sponsor your events and support you, blah, blah, blah. That's what we want to do. We want to give back to the community. I'm like, oh, that's great. So they invited me down to meet with the guy whose name is on the door. And we had a good 2.5 hour discussion about various things in the community. I was actually surprised. He said he's been doing stuff in this community for years, and he didn't know about some things that I just took for granted. But, you know, he had been working on this one end of the community and not the other end. So I think that's why they were excited by me, because, you know, I'm a doorway into the other end. Which was fun. So yeah, they're like, yeah, if you ever have an event scheduled, if you have a party or a barbecue or anything like that, call us. We'll support it. You know, we'll either support you financially, or we'll come and get you, you know, we'll donate some food or beverages or whatever the case may be. And I was like, really? Yeah, they said they didn't want to actually throw the events. They didn't want to actually host the events. They just wanted to sponsor events. And they have one that they're sponsoring on Saturday, which is not my event, but I did invite them to one on Saturday. And they sponsor a few others throughout the year. And it's really awesome. So, whew. You can't tell on the camera, but this is all uphill. It's not super steep, but I am super fat. So, and I am wearing, see if I can get it on camera. I am wearing a giant backpack. So, and it's probably 25 or 30 pounds. It's not that bad. But I just needed something to add a little bit more resistance. So, and for those of you who don't already know, this trail ends up here, and round trip it's about 2 miles. So it's a nice little walk at elevation with some elevation changes. This is definitely the longest up that I go through. And then I get up there and I turn around and come back. And it normally takes me about 40 minutes, which means it'll be like 3 days for this video to load. These people have never said hi to me, but they have a dog that likes to come out and come to the fence line. His name's George. Real friendly dog. Yeah. It's one of those things. I mean, I say hi. I talk to everybody. I don't care who you are, what station in life you have, or anything like that. And moved out here about in October, these people don't say hi to anybody. It's very rare. I mean, I've been able to meet neighbors on one side of me. The neighbors on the other side have never said hi. Never said a word. I've seen people out working in their yards or doing whatever, and I'm like, hey, how's it going? And they just kind of look up and they'll go back to their work, if they even recognize you at all. Like, recognize that you exist, not recognize you as somebody they know. So yeah, kind of. And I've talked to some of the neighbors that I have met about it. I'm like, yeah, nobody around here ever says hi. They're like, yeah, people don't move out to this kind of area when they want to be social. I'm like, oh, fair enough. But, we're neighbors. And I've always known my neighbors. It's, except when I was a kid, because we were the kids that annoyed our neighbors. We were the ones that were always outside, always being noisy, playing ball in the yard, or having our friends over in the yard, throwing our frisbees going over fences, or our balls going over fences or whatever. And on one side of us was a retired couple who would say hi, but they never bothered to get to know us. I couldn't tell you their names. I don't think my mom could either. And on the other side was a very reclusive guy who he really, really hated it when our ball or frisbee or whatever went over the fence. And he, you had to knock on his door and say, hey, can we go get our ball from your backyard? He never said no, but, he's always like, can't you keep it in your own yard? It's like, well, sometimes you hit it a little too hard. Or sometimes you throw it a little too hard. So, yeah, I'd love to keep it in my own yard, but, crap happens. So, and then a lot of other neighbors in front of us, across the street, and behind us. We just barely ever saw them. But, I've always, since I was in the military, when you live in the barracks and you know all your neighbors, I've just always made it a point to know my neighbors. I mean, you don't have to be friends, but be friendly. Because these are the people that are gonna keep an eye out on your house when you're not home. These are the people that are gonna tell you something weird happened while you were on vacation. And if your neighbors like you, chances are they're not gonna break into your house. No, some may. There's always some kid who wants the thrill, or some kid who doesn't care about being neighborly. But more often than not, once you know your neighbors, you're usually fine. Unless, of course, you're the one they hate. I'm sure I've been that guy. I decided a long time ago, I think I was maybe in junior high, that you can't make everybody happy. I watched my mom bend herself backwards and be miserable her whole life because she's so busy trying to make everybody happy. Trying to make us kids happy, trying to make her boss happy, trying to make her friends happy, trying to make her brothers and sisters happy, trying to make her mom happy, trying to make my dad, even though they were divorced, trying to make him happy. And, I was like, yeah, if you live your life, and I mean, this is something I realized when I was a kid. If you live your life trying to make other people happy all the time, you're going to be miserable all the time. And it was years later that I, ran across that idiom. It was, You can please all the people some of the time, some of the people all the time, but you can't please everyone all the time. Or did I even get that right? I think I got it wrong. All the people some of the time. Yeah, some of the people all the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. And it's true. I mean, even recently I tried to tell people, I'm like, yeah, for better or worse, I live life by the bell curve. There's these 10% of people over here you're never going to make happy, no matter what you do. They ask for ice cream, you hand them ice cream, they're not going to be happy. They want the day off of work, you give them the day off of work, they're not going to be happy. They ask for help mowing their lawn, you go over there and help them mow their lawn, they're not going to be happy. There's always going to be people that are never going to be happy, no matter what you do. And then you turn around, and on the other end, you have the people that are going to be happy no matter what you do. And you can't worry about those people on either end. You got to worry about the 80% in the middle that are on the sliding scale that you can make some of them happy. You can make but there's going to be varying degrees. So this is usually where I turn around. This trail actually, I'm told, continues. If you walk up the road here about another half mile, 3/4 of a mile, it continues, it doubles back that way. But I didn't do it when Rufus was alive, when it was cooler, it was wintertime, because he was too old at that time. He was 13 and a half. He was too old to do it. And I haven't done it in the summertime here because it's just, I just haven't done it. I keep telling myself I'm going to, and I keep not doing it. Or you can walk around here to the next turn, the next right-hand turn, take the right, and then you go down to where it tees, and you take a right, and you go back home. You can do a round trip, but I just usually like to go back this way. So yeah, and I sat on a board of directors once, and I had to take that mentality with me, that ideology of you can't make everybody happy, and you shouldn't try. You'll run yourself ragged trying. So you try to get yourself at the 50% mark. If you're lucky, you'll get to the 60% mark. If the universe is shining on you, you'll get to the 70 or 75% mark. But yeah, you're never going to make everybody happy. So just do your thing. I think, there's so many things that I've already talked about on Action Cam that haven't been updated or uploaded. I feel like I should cover some of them here, but I also feel like I shouldn't. Yeah. So, and know your audience. If you're at work, do what you got to do. But, you might try to find a common ground or something that satisfies everybody a little harder than you might try at home with your family, or vice versa. If you sit on a board or you sit on a legislative seat, same thing. You might try to find that common ground. You might try to find, something to please not to please, but to satisfy a majority of that 80%. But sometimes you're not going to. Sorry. Sometimes doing the right thing means not making people happy. So, and sometimes doing the right thing means making people happy. Again, know your audience, know your situation, know your context, I guess is what I'm saying. And look who you're trying to make happy. I mean, if you're only trying to make that 10% happy, then you're probably doing it wrong. If you're trying to satisfy the people who are already satisfied, you really aren't trying that hard. You're saying, hey, these 10% support me, therefore I must be right. You're lying to yourself. In reality, you got to look at the others. I mean, if you're really smart, in which case, I've done this a couple of times, you go to the person who's never happy and you say, hey, what would it take? What kind of outcome are you looking for? Well, what do you think a success story is? Etc. They're still not going to be happy, but they're going to help you capture some of that 80% and get you over that 50% mark. So, again, looking at the bell curve. Whew. So this is the easiest part of the walk. It's, for the most part, downhill. But, there's these little uphills here. And I really hate walking on, like, ellipticals or stepping machines or running machines or whatever. I like to get out and actually do stuff. That was something I came to not a conclusion, but I came to a revelation years ago when I was in the military. Because, you go out, we're always exercising outside, unless it's raining or 6 inches of snow on the ground, we're exercising outside. Very few times do we get to go to the gym and work out, which was fine. In retrospect, I mean, when you're actually in the middle of it, it sucks. But, I realized, I think it was after picking up bicycling as a hobby, that stationary bicycles, and consequently, stationary anything, suck. They really do. You're sitting there. Sure, you're moving. Sure, you can adjust your tension, blah, blah, blah. But you're not doing anything. You get bored. You're sitting there staring. And you're like, oh, but Jason, they have them now with videos on them. So, you're still sitting there. You're not feeling the wind in your hair. You're not looking at the scenery. You're not, like, even though I'm wearing these hiking boots, which are a little stiffer soled than the shoes I had on yesterday, I can still feel all the differences in the ground beneath my foot. I can still feel everything. I can smell the pine trees. I can smell the dry air. Sometimes, depending on where you're at, you can smell the flowers or the change in the air when the clouds or the humidity or the storm rolls through, whatever the case may be. These are all things that make, in my opinion, an experience. Plus, the one irrefutable fact is that when you get done on a exercise bicycle or a walking machine or an elliptical or a stair stepper or whatever, you can step off of it and walk away. You can call it a day. But when you've walked 5 miles and you're like, oh, I'm kind of done, I'm tired, you still have to walk that 5 miles to get home. When you go out for a bicycle ride and you've been riding for a couple hours or even an hour, I mean, you can get pretty far on a bicycle in an hour. Not as far as a car or whatever, but much further than walking or running. And you get out there and you're riding around, blah, blah, blah. And, you're like, oh, okay, well, I'm done. I'm tired. My legs hurt. I'm sweating my butt off. I need some water, etc. You still have to get home. Now, if you're lucky, or back to your, wherever you started from, maybe your truck's parked somewhere or your car's parked somewhere. If you're really, really lucky, you can call a friend and say, hey, come pick me up. I'm tired. But more often than not, you have to get home or back to wherever. And that, that involves more exercise, whether you wanted to or not. So yeah, that's why I really don't like being in a gym. I belong to one, but it's specifically, I used to live a half a mile from it, so I'd walk to it every day, start up the exercise. I'd work out for an hour or so, doing various exercises depending on the day. So I was building a lot of muscle mass. And then I'd go maybe sit in the steam room or the sauna for a little bit. Depending on the time of the year, maybe I'd take a little swim in the pool or something and call it a day. And then I'd walk home. Now that same gym is like 37 miles away. I can no longer walk to it. I have to drive to it. And in my truck, that's almost 3 gallons of gas, and that's almost $7, $7.50 just to get to the gym, another $7.50 just to get home from the gym. So you're looking at $15 on top of the gym membership. Now, it's one thing if I'm going by there every day, leave a little earlier in the morning, get a workout, or stop on the way home from work and get a workout. But I quit my job a couple months ago when Rufus got sick, and decided to stay home with him, just in case he, not just in case he died, but so when he died, I would be there with him. I was not going to let my dog die alone. So yeah, for a couple of months, I barely left the house. I mean, I'd run up to the store, be gone for an hour or two. I think there was once I went and saw a movie. I was literally gone for like the length of the movie and the drive time there and the drive time back. But yeah, for the rest of it, I was around. I was there. I didn't want him to not have me around when he was done. So, and naturally my boss didn't understand. But the good thing was I was working a 1099 contract job. It was commission only. So I told him I didn't freaking care. He's like, well, I need you to be out there selling. And I said, well, my dog needs me to be home so that he can survive. Or that, not so he can survive, so that he can see that, we are pack. And he's like, but it's just a dog. And I said, I don't care. He's like, well, I can't tell you what to do because you're a 1099, but, I really need you out there selling. And I said, well, like you said, I'm a 1099. That's a contract employee. So there's really nothing you can tell me to do. You can't tell me to do anything. Because I'm not your employee. I'm a contractor. So yeah, I walked away. It was all right. I had a couple issues with that job to begin with. One, it was a startup, which isn't a problem. But they asked me to come and do sales, which I'm fine with. I don't have a problem with that. And they gave me a brief overview of what they were selling, what their product was, or their service, because it was a service. And every time I asked questions about it, they would say, you don't need to know that. I'm like, well, I do need to know that. And we went rounds the first couple of weeks that I worked there. I never got to see a contract. They're like, well, when you get... So I couldn't talk to anybody. I couldn't say, well, in our contract it says this. I wasn't allowed to negotiate terms. They were very specific on, this is our contract, this is what you get. So they really hamstrung me because, and here's a truth bomb on you. Your salespeople have to know what they're selling. They have to know it well enough to be confident enough to talk about it. They have to know it well enough that they can have an intelligent conversation with somebody who might already know about that product or service. So, I mean, if you're selling software, your salespeople don't need to know your code. They may not even need to know your coding language, but they need to know basic questions that customers or prospects might ask. Sorry, I keep burping. Well, they might, I said that incorrectly. They need to know the answers to basic questions. So let's say you're selling a software, and they ask, your prospect says, oh, well, is this cloud-based or do we host it? You need to be able to answer that question. Or if they say, well, we already have our own servers, we would like to host it, but we are running Windows servers. Is that a problem? You need to be able to answer that question. Or if they say, if they ask, but we run our own servers, we're running, this Linux distro. Is that going to be okay? Or whatever. You need to be able to answer these questions. You need to have at least that basic knowledge of what you're selling without having to go, let me call my boss, or let me call the engineer, or let me call my SME. Sorry. I kept thinking EEE. Yeah, I got it, but your SME, your subject matter expert. Now, those are the guys that you should call if you have a question. If they have a question like, we're running, we want to host it on our server, but we're also running these 3 other softwares on the server. Are they going to conflict, or are there going to be problems? Those are the kind of answers you go to your subject matter expert for, not your basic ones. So, I interviewed with this company, and like I said, I was a contractor. And I just said, they said, hey, we're doing this. And I said, well, how are you doing it? And he goes, you don't need to know that. And I was like, what if somebody asks? He goes, just tell them they don't need to know that. I'm like, I'm fairly technically savvy. I said, well, just give me a basic answer. Are you using an algorithm that you developed, that the owner or the founder of this company developed? Are you repackaging another service? Are you leveraging AI? Everybody's out there using AI right now for various things. Or are you paying a team of people in the Philippines or Thailand or something to sit here and do this manually all day long? Something broad, something, simple as, oh, it's an algorithm we instigated. Okay, cool. Because for me, it's a selling feature. Hey, we're leveraging a state-of-the-art algorithm to make sure that we bring you these kind of results. Or, where you've heard about AI, from IBM's Watson all the way up to Google's initiatives. Everybody's using AI right now, and we are too. We're cutting edge. We are ahead of the fold. Or whatever. There's already a service out there like this. We saw it, we took it apart, we decided we could do it better, so we built it from the ground up. We not only made it faster, we made it cheaper, and we made it more accurate. Anything. These are selling points to me. Anything that I can take and convince the prospect that this is why they need to jump on board with us. And the answer I got was, you don't need to know. And I said, okay. I said, I'm not asking for your code. I'm not asking for your back end secrets. I'm just asking how you do it. He's like, you don't need to know. So fast forward, and we get to the point, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the process? And he goes, well, you call and you make the sale, and then you send us a text message telling us you got him the sale, and then we take it from there. I'm like, so you're just really hiring me to make phone calls for you, and then I let you know? And he's like, yeah. And I said, there's no contract that I need to have people sign, or there's no online form that I have them fill out or anything? There's nothing? He goes, nope, you just text us and let us know the contact person, their email address, etc., and then we'll go ahead and send them the contract. And I'm like, oh, okay. Can I see the contract? And he's like, no. And I said, why not? You know, if I'm a salesperson and I'm asking people to sign something, shouldn't I know what I'm asking them to sign? And he goes, well, why do you need to know that? And there's just a lot of sketchy answers like that. Like they were treating it like a state secret. And I'm like, you know, I get it. It was a veteran-founded company. I was interviewing with a veteran. I am a veteran. I get, you know, that there's proprietary information and things like that, or you know, trade secrets. But I wasn't asking for those secrets. I was asking for basics. I was asking, you know, so if somebody says, you know, if I'm selling, and I was selling to lawyers, so if a lawyer popped up and said, well, what's in your contract? Or, you know, is this kind of a clause in your contract? Or does your contract cover this kind of a circumstance? I needed to be, as a salesperson, I needed to be able to answer those questions. I couldn't say with any confidence, oh, they won't let me see the contract. I mean, does that make any sense? So when Rufus got sick, it did not hurt me to walk away. I like what they were doing. I think it was kind of cool. But the other fact of it is they were in business for about 3 days. Their business literally started, I think they registered their company on October 21st of 2017. And I had gotten picked up by them like November 3rd or 2nd or something. Not a problem. But between that October 21st and that November 2nd, Google had already called them and said, hey, we see what you're doing. And the owner, you know, not the owner, but the guy that I interviewed with, he's like, oh my God, I think he was operations manager or something. He's like, oh my God, I thought Google was going to tell us to cease and desist. And, but they didn't. They told me it was really interesting what we were doing. They hadn't thought of that before. Oh man, that was so great. He's like, okay, cool. So, and a couple months later, Google was competing directly with them. Google was selling the exact same thing, but Google could also control it better. And, you know, Google's going to be around next week, while a startup may not. Especially when they won't let their team in on any of, you know, what they're doing. So, got some clouds up there right now. It's kind of cool. So yeah, that was the walk. Kind of done. I'm going to go in, going to get some water. Maybe have a snack. And then it's 1 o'clock. Going to do my thing. Wish I had somewhere to go. Maybe I'll just go to the library or something. I don't know. I need to get out of the house.